The Leviathan. That's a boss I've never killed before. In fact, there's a lot of bosses I've never killed before, certainly not this one. That could be a fun challenge, you know. An adventure, a new experience. That sounds like a fun thing for me to do. Honestly, it's going to be tough, but a challenge is really, that's part of the fun, right? A wiki page. You know what, a wiki page, that probably would help. At least that way I can get an idea of the Leviathan's defensive stats, and yeah, I can see why that would be helpful. Absolutely. A guide? Yeah, okay. You know what? I should watch a guide. There are so many talented guide makers out there. Probably would help. It's not going to kill too much of the fun, right? It'll be fun. DPS calculator. Okay. I mean, yeah, I mean, that might save me some trial and error. I don't even know what gear to go in here with, so it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Nah, man. This is too much. Old school RuneScape players optimized the fun out of the game. And before you leave an angry comment explaining why I'm wrong, don't worry, I'm one of them. I've spent countless hours researching the best training methods, XP per hour, drop tables, all calculated by people way smarter than me. I've even watched YouTube videos explaining how to play the game so that I don't have to figure out how to play the game, which now I say out loud is slightly insane. But here's the weird part, none of these things are bad. The OSRS wiki is one of the most incredible things ever created. We have one of the best wikis of any video game ever. Trust me on that. RuneLite is incredible. The community has collectively solved problems that 20 years ago we thought were impossible. So why do old school RuneScape players still always say the same thing? OSRS just doesn't feel the same anymore. And I don't think it's nostalgia, at least not entirely. Because when people say that, they're probably expecting something like this. Training on cows, walking everywhere because we didn't really have teleports, dying to the Dark Wizards, getting scammed for the first time, and the second time, and the third time, and the fourth time, and the fifth time. But let's be honest, old school RuneScape wasn't magical because it was better, we were just terrible at it. You weren't an adventurer, you were just a confused kid, wandering the world, killing chickens because your friend at school told you that feathers are going to be useful and will sell for money later. And yet, somehow it felt more exciting. Why? I think the answer is actually quite simple. Back then, RuneScape was a mystery. Now it's a solved equation. Back in 2005, almost every decision contained uncertainty. Remember that word, it's going to be important for the rest of the video. How do I make money? Where should I train? What gear should I use? What happens if I go through that gate? Nobody really knew. Information existed, but it wasn't everywhere. Today, every question has an answer, usually several, and charts, and graphs, and spreadsheets, and a man on YouTube who somehow turned killing a boss into a doctoral thesis. Want the fastest way to train? There's a guide. Want the optimal quest order? There's a guide. Want a guide that explains which guide to use? Yeah, there's a guide. The game itself is no longer the puzzle. The puzzle's been solved. Our job is simply following the solution, and humans are very good at following solutions. In fact, we love efficiency. If there are 2 training methods for a skill, the first one giving 85,000 XP per hour, the other one giving 78,000 XP per hour, well, congratulations, the method that did 78,000 XP per hour is now completely unplayable. Scientists estimate that taking the slower option will cause immediate distress and severe judgment from other players. Observe the maxed player. Having spent thousands of hours playing the game and optimizing every step, he now spends 30 minutes standing at the Grand Exchange to figure out how he can save 2 minutes on a farm run. Nature is beautiful. The strange thing is, optimization actually isn't the enemy. I mean, optimization feels good. We love efficiency. It's why speedrunners and speedruns exist in the first place. It's why people spend hours calculating raid setups and rotations. It's the same reason people have made spreadsheets based on the profit margins of harvesting seaweed. Don't do that. The issue isn't optimization. The issue comes when there's nothing left to optimize. Because the most memorable moments in RuneScape and your time playing RuneScape aren't the most efficient ones. Think about your first fire cape, your first trip into Mauritania, your first Barrows run, your first time getting completely destroyed by content that looked significantly easier than it actually was. These moments stick with us because they provide something that guides and optimization can't: uncertainty. You didn't know what was going to happen. You weren't following a script. You were exploring. You were learning, discovering. And humans are surprisingly attached to the unknown. Not just in RuneScape, in pretty much every game and in life itself. Take Minecraft. Another game where players optimize absolutely everything. People have automated farms, resource calculators, speedrun routes, entire industrial complexes capable of building a small nation. Eventually, most players get bored. And that's completely normal. Nobody expects a Minecraft world to entertain them forever. Eventually, you've built the castle, you've killed the dragon, you've built a machine that makes 48,000 potatoes an hour. The game actually even identifies some of the topics of today's video itself. When you kill the Ender Dragon for the first time, you're not presented with credits, you're presented with a poem. Here's a direct quote: "To tell them how to live is to prevent them from living." It's not about direction, it's about discovery. And when discovery ends, boredom begins. And at that point, people do something interesting. They start over. Maybe not straight away. Sometimes they take a break. They go and find another game to play for a little while, but eventually, they always come back. New world, new adventure, new problems. And suddenly, the game feels fresh again. Not because Minecraft changed, but because uncertainty returned. The player no longer knows exactly what's going to happen. The early game becomes exciting again. Every cave matters, every resource matters, every decision matters. Rarely do players come back from an extended break and hop back into their old world that they spent hundreds of hours on. They want something new, something fresh. They make a new one. And this isn't unique to Minecraft. So many games do it. Roguelikes do it. RPGs do it. Survival games do it. I mean, tell me in the comments and be honest, how many characters have you made in Skyrim in your lifetime? And while you're at it, how many RuneScape accounts have you made in your time? Entire genres have been built around recreating the beginner cycle. Prestige in Call of Duty. People want to go back to the start, where you have that first gun with no attachments. You don't even have create a class yet, but it's exciting. Those first few games where you have like nothing, those pre-made classes, that's exciting. Because being a beginner is fun. It's frustrating, it's inefficient, it's chaos. Which creates an interesting question. If starting over is one of the best ways to reinstill that fun and adventure of a video game, why does old school RuneScape make that such a difficult thing to do? Here's the part that took me an embarrassing amount of time to realize, but old school RuneScape players already figured this out. Iron Man, Hardcore Iron Man, Ultimate Iron Man, Skillers, Pures, region locked accounts, chunk accounts. Chunk accounts? That sounds a little too familiar. Because if you really think about it, all of these different account builds are all just trying to achieve the same thing. They bring uncertainty back to an already solved game. Nobody creates a chunk account because they enjoy suffering. At least, most people. They create one because RuneScape becomes unpredictable again. The question stops becoming, what's the best thing to do? And it becomes, what can I do? Those are completely different questions. A normal account asks for solutions. A restricted account asks for problem solving. And problem solving is fun. Speaking from experience, some of the most memorable experiences I've had in this game certainly weren't efficient. They weren't optimal. They certainly weren't good for my mental health, but they were memorable. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't already know the answers. I had to figure it out. And that's when I realized something. Maybe players don't miss RuneScape. Maybe they miss not knowing what they're doing. Which sounds ridiculous, until you remember that that's exactly what made us fall in love with RuneScape in the first place. Unfortunately, there is one small problem. You can't become 12 years old again. Trust me, I tried. You can't unknow what a fire cape is. You can't walk into a dungeon and discover the creatures that are down there when you've already killed those creatures 3,000 times. And you can't walk through that gate for the very first time again. Some mysteries only happen once, and that's okay. Because I don't think the goal should be recreating 2007. That's impossible. I think the goal should be recreating what 2007 felt like. What made it feel special? Discovery, curiosity, problem solving, uncertainty. The things that existed before we knew all the answers. And the beautiful thing is, those things still exist. They're just harder to find. Every time a player starts an Iron Man, creates a Snowflake restricted account, tries a piece of content that they've never tried before, chooses fun over efficiency, a little bit of that mystery comes back. Not because the game changed, because the player changed. For years, I thought the endgame of RuneScape was maxing, or raids, or best in slot, or collection logs, or finally obtaining that one drop that you've been hunting for since the invention of electricity. But I don't think that's true anymore. I think the real endgame is learning how to have fun again. And that sounds absurd, because having fun is supposed to be the easy part. It's supposed to be hand-delivered to you on a plate by the content that you consume without you actually having to put any effort in, right? Yet so many of us have become so good at how to play the game efficiently that we've unlearned how to play the game creatively. We've mistaken optimal for mandatory, efficiency for enjoyment, progress for purpose. And before anyone gets upset, I'm not saying optimization is bad. Some people love efficiency, chasing XP rates, learning the perfect rotations, perfecting PVM. Those players are having fun too. Probably. The problem only starts when we convince ourselves that that's the only way to play. Because the magic of RuneScape was never that everybody played the same way, it's that nobody did. Every account was an adventure. Every account had a different story, and maybe that's still the game's greatest strength. And that brings me to something that I've been thinking about for a little bit, and maybe a call to action. If creating new accounts is one of the best ways to rediscover old school RuneScape, why is it still so difficult to do? Not mechanically, I mean, just click that button. It's that easy, right? But financially. Because right now, every new character and every new experience comes with, guess what? Another new membership. And with the prices having increased recently, it deters a lot of players from experiencing that fresh account feeling. Imagine if every time you wanted to click create new world in Minecraft, you had to pay them $18 or whatever it is. Imagine if every time you wanted to make a new character in Skyrim, you had to just re-buy the game. Those games would collapse immediately. Want to try an Iron Man? Another membership. Want to make a Pure? Another membership. Want to make a chunk account that forces you to spend hundreds of hours obtaining an item that nobody ever wants and needs in the first place? Another membership. And to be clear, I'm not arguing that membership shouldn't exist. Obviously, it's the structure of the game, it's the financial way the game works. It makes perfect sense. And I've happily paid membership for years and will continue to do so. I have no problem with that. RuneScape is one of the best games in terms of dollar per hour that you get out of it. But I do wonder if the game would benefit from treating additional accounts less like additional purchases and more like different ways to engage with the game that we already love. Because every time someone starts a new account, they're not leaving RuneScape, they're rediscovering it. And if discovery is one of the most powerful tools against burnout, maybe that process should be encouraged. Not because the game is dying, not because players are quitting, but because experimentation has always been one of the most healthy parts of the community. After all, some of the most creative and popular content about this game is because somebody looked at a normal account and thought, how do I make this significantly worse? And somehow that worked. One of the reasons Settled is such a popular content creator is because, well, firstly, you're re-engaging your own brain watching a new account, going through those early game things. That's really cool. But his biggest selling point by a mile, and I don't think anyone would disagree here, is his ability to tell a story. Now, firstly, he's insanely talented at storytelling. Not everybody can do that. But you would not really be able to tell a story on 500 kills of the Leviathan with max gear and a maxed account and the perfect efficiency setup and whatever. He's given the tools to create those stories by making new restricted account builds, forming new worlds, new stories, new adventures, and then piecing those together into a script to tell you a story. That discovery, adventure, new account has unlocked a world of wonder for so many people. So why is it gate-locked behind another $17.99? Is that what the price is? I didn't look it up before writing the script. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's kind of the point. These accounts aren't popular because they're efficient. They're popular because they're adventures. They're unsolved. They're personal. They're stories. And stories are what people remember. So no, I don't think RuneScape is losing its magic. I don't think RuneLight ruined the game. I don't think efficiency ruined the game. In fact, I think all of those things helped OSRS become one of the greatest MMOs of all time. The challenge is that after 20 years, we've become incredibly talented at turning the unknown into the known. We've charted the routes, optimized the grinds, documented the answers, and somewhere along the lines it became easy to mistake familiarity for the absence of wonder. But wonder never really left. It just moved into corners of the game that still feel unexplored because they are. The truth is, we'll never walk into Gillinor with fresh eyes, ever again. We'll never recreate that feeling of being lost, confused, and completely captivated. But maybe rediscovery doesn't come from going backwards. Maybe it comes from approaching the same world from a different direction. Because the moments that stay with us aren't always the biggest achievements. They're the unexpected detours, the problems we didn't know we'd create for ourselves, the stories that start emerging when we stop asking, what's the best way to play, and start asking, what happens if I try this? That's the strange thing about RuneScape. The more solved it becomes, the more opportunities we find to make it mysterious again. And maybe that's why people keep coming back. Not for progress, not for nostalgia, but for an old world to reveal something new. I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.